So yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, I guess we should get into this before it's too late.
Yeah.
So you're good with where we left off, right? We haven't read 13 yet, at least not on the podcast.
Yeah. What's 12? I just want a quick recap. The Passover. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about that. So now, dude, I love this coming up. This stuff that's coming up is so cool.
Oh, with like the manna and all that.
Yeah, the manna.
Yeah.
God leading them through the mountains.
Yeah, and everyone being pissed.
Yeah, I know. As you're reading it, you're like, dude, everyone's such a whiner. Like,
Yeah.
stop. Like,
Yeah.
he just pulled you out of slavery, and this is how you're talking to him? Like,
I know.
this is
I
like
actually have some
ridiculous.
thoughts on that we'll get through like when we start reading it, but it was
Yeah,
really
that's fine.
fascinating. Yeah. Did you start or did I start last time?
It does. I'll start it.
All right.
I'll start it this time. Exodus 13. Consecration of the firstborn. The Lord said to Moses, consecrate to me all the firstborn. Whatever is the first to open the womb among the people of Israel, both of man and of beast, is mine. The Feast of Unleavened Bread. Then Moses said to the people, remember this day in which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, for by a strong hand the Lord brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. Today, in the month of Abib, which is April, you are going out. And when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. No leavened bread shall be seen with you, and no leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory. You shall tell your son on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. And it shall be a sign, and it shall be to you as a sign on your hand, and as a memorial between your eyes, that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this statute at its appointed time from year to year. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and shall give it to you, you shall set apart to the Lord all that first opens the womb. All the firstborn of your animals that are males shall be the Lord's. Every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. Or, if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. And when in time to come your son asks you, what does this mean? You shall say to him, by a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, from the house of slavery. For when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of animals. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all the males that first open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It shall be as a mark on your hand or frontlets between your eyes, for by a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt. Pillars of cloud and fire. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. But God led the people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. And the people of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt, equipped for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones with you from here. And they moved on from Succoth and encamped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they may travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people.
It'd be pretty crazy, wouldn't it? Like the cloud totally makes sense,
Right.
but like a
A
pillar of fire at night.
Like, that's wild to me. It's so cool. Like,
Yeah, it
could you
is
imagine
fascinating.
seeing that? Especially like after seeing that, would you not like in these next few in these next few chapters, you see that they complain. And it's like, dude, you just witnessed not only a pillar of like cloud, but a pillar of fire guiding you, and you're still like whining.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Dude, I mean, that's essentially the whole story here, right? But
Yeah.
also, what we're witnessing here is the setup of the original like Mosaic law, like
Right.
the
Yeah.
holding place law that
Yeah.
we have before the coming of Jesus. So, like, if you didn't follow this stuff, you were like sinning essentially, which
Yeah.
is crazy. I'm so glad we don't live during
It
those
is.
times.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's a lot to it. Like, it's not so cut and dry. And honestly,
Yeah.
some of it you'll be like, what?
You
Like, are
imagine
you
and be
sure?
like, oh man, you know what? My goat had twins, and I sacrificed the one that was born second of the twins. Is God gonna spite me? You know, like
Yeah.
Moses coming down to rebuke you. You fool! You sacrificed the youngest.
Yeah, right.
I can explain. I got them
Yeah.
mixed up.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it is kind
One
of
thing.
fascinating too because it is like immediately setting them up for a standard that they're not going to be able to hold.
Oh yeah.
Pretty interesting,
Oh yeah.
which is the whole
Yeah.
point of the law.
Right. And dude, when I first read through this, I was like, I had to backtrack because it was like, it was talking about the firstborn of the animals in the sun. And like, when I was reading that you have to like sacrifice the firstborn animal, I was like, wait a minute. Because like, I thought it was going into like where it was going to say the same thing for the humans
Yeah.
too. And I was like, oh, what? So when I read through this, um, then this is where I saw it, where I was like, okay, this makes more sense. Um, the Lord killed the firstborn in all the land of Egypt. Therefore, I sacrificed to the Lord all the males that first opened the womb. And when I read that part, I was like, wait, all the males? And then it says, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. So it's two different things here. It's
Yeah,
saying that
sure.
the animals you sacrifice, but the sons of God, you redeem, not
Yeah.
sacrifice. So yeah, what to do? I first read through that, I was like, I gotta reread this because I am not tracking. All right, you ready to go to 14?
Yep, not really much to unpack there other than
Yeah,
the beginning of the Mosaic law is really starting to happen here.
yeah.
I mean, I guess it started with the Passover, but still.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
All right, crossing the Red Sea. Ooh, I get to read this one.
This one's really cool.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Pi Hirathoth between Migdol and the sea in front of Baal-zephon.
Sorry.
Hey,
I
hey.
was trying. I was trying.
I mean, I don't even know how you say it. Pihahiroth. Pihahiroth.
It's better.
Okay. Between Migdol and the sea in front of Baal-zephon, you shall encamp facing it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say to the people of Israel, they are wandering the land, the wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed toward the people. And they said, what is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us? So he made ready his chariot and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel, while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, and camped at the sea by Pi-hahiroth, in front of Baal-zephon. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. The Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so they shall go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. Then the angel of God who was going before the host of Israel moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night, without one coming near the other, all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watched the Lord in the pillar of fire and of cloud, looked down on the Egyptian forces, and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. Of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians, So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses.
I think it's fascinating. And I think what's even cooler too is that we have proof, like there's chariot wheels that have been discovered at the bottom of the Red Sea.
So that guy is very contended, though, I will say. Ron White, I think his name is. It's a comedian. Something like that.
Have you ever seen the video proof of it?
Yes, I think it's real, but I guess he's not like a credible source. There's a lot of historians who don't believe what he's saying.
Well, I know who Ron White is. He's definitely a comedian,
Yeah, then
but
that's not the same guy. It was something like that, though. Well, let me see if I can find it.
because I've seen multiple videos about it already.
Have you?
Yeah,
Uh,
divers going down there, and they're not just finding. I mean, chariot wheels. Like they're finding. I mean, that was like one of the biggest things, but they're finding like axles too from the chariots. Human remains with coral crusted over them.
Ron Wyatt.
Ron Wyatt.
Yeah. I mean, this Google AI, it's wrong half the time, but like if you just type in Red Sea chariot found, it says no clear evidence of chariots found in the Red Sea.
Hmm.
Some divers have reported finding coral structures that resemble chariot wheels.
I don't know, man. I've
It
seen a lot
looks,
of
I've
proofs
seen the
of it.
videos too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I believe it's real. I think that by AI saying that, I truly believe that something with our internet and stuff is corrupt. Like it's not. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
kidding.
that's
Like,
the devil.
yeah, dude. Honestly, because I mean, like, think about the powers and control of it. You know what I mean? I know that the internet is essentially like a highway of information, but who also created AI? Humans.
Mhm.
So I don't think that it's totally accurate. And I think it's just people trying to say, like, it's not true just because they put blinders on themselves and refuse to believe it.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. I'm just saying that, like, I think the general consensus amongst the historical society is that there's not enough evidence there to
Mm.
be able to say that that's the case.
I don't know, but if you actually, so if have those historians never dove down into the Red Sea? Probably not.
No, they have not. At least the
Exactly.
area where Ron Wyatt has been saying that they are.
Right. Also, an archaeologist found a pillar that was dedicated to the Red Sea parting. The Egyptians built it
Mm,
to say that they had been basically. I don't remember exactly what the pillar said on it, and there was a lot of it that was damaged as well because it had like fallen over time.
mhm.
So, but they did uncover that. I heard recently. Also, there's also video footage of people walking along that beach, and the sand that is on the beach is not so much sand anymore, it's melted. So you can actually see footprints like melted into the sand from there, and it's like hard as a rock. And there's certain parts of the sand that is glass. Like it was actually so hot that it made it into glass. And you can see the like rocks and boulders and stuff like that around it. Oh, around the base of it.
Wait, are you talking about at the Red Sea or like
Yes.
is that where there's that? Because I think that guy, that same guy, Ron Wyatt, was saying that Sodom and Gomorrah was right around the Red Sea as well.
Mm. Apparently, this is the place where the sea was parted.
Mm,
So, and it's ironic too because if you look at a map and you look at the topography underneath the water, the, the Red Sea has some very very deep portions to it, like 900 meters or something like that. But in the middle of the Red Sea, there's a land bridge that is created. It's still under the water, but it's only like 200 or 300 feet under the water instead. And that's where it's people believe that that's where it was parted, so that way people could get across. I mean, essentially, like otherwise you'd be walking down a mountain, right? If you're going to go down 900 feet,
Right.
but they didn't have the time to do that. The Egyptians were right on their ass.
Well,
So
I mean, it did take them a whole night to get across, though.
yes, it did. It did.
So they were doing some walking.
But it's ironic too because since the sand was melted in that area on the beach. I mean, it even says it here. I gotta find it again. I think it was up here a little bit. Yeah, and right here, verse 24. And in the morning, watched the Lord in the pillar of fire and of cloud, looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. So it even says that, like, by the time the morning came, the Lord God was still a pillar of fire. It takes over 3,000 degrees to melt sand. Right? So the fact that that whole beach line across there is melted sand really proves that this stuff actually happened. I mean, yes, the hard thing is do we know if someone's telling us a lie or not over the internet? Can we just believe that this video footage was actually taken in that spot? I think you have to put some faith into believing that because you're never truly going to know unless you went and seen it for yourself. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And traveling over there at this time right now is pretty dangerous. So you'd have to be careful because of all the wars and stuff going on.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that because, just as far as an information thing, I went on a whole Ron Wyatt rabbit hole a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure he's the guy that discovered Noah's Ark over in Turkey.
Yeah, which is another thing that's true.
He's discovered a lot of places, but there's a lot of like contention around him. Again, like in like the historical study area, for whatever reasons, I don't know. I couldn't really find much because I tried to find like conflicting opinions on it, and it wasn't. I don't know. It was like an argument, I guess, between modern belief and what's not modern belief, essentially.
Mm.
Same kind of with like the Graham Hancock thing with the ancient apocalypse. Like he has a lot of well-supported evidence, and then like the archaeologists are like, nope, that didn't happen. You're wrong.
Mm.
But really can't like point as to why other than their own beliefs
Right.
that have already been like established, I guess. I don't know. I would need to do more research on it if I wanted to speak more clearly, but
yeah. Yeah, apparently yeah, like I don't know if it's the same guy, Ron Wyatt. Might be.
he had a video about doing it, about
But
finding that stuff with all the chariot wheels.
yeah. Yeah, and I've seen the Ark one recently where if you go to like a native settlement in that area, they call it Noah Agumshi or something like that, which means Noah's big boat. And that's what they call the mountain. And apparently there was like an earthquake or something and it caused that to rise out and they did scans of the mountain. They found like spine, like, like timber, but it was like the spines of the ship, right? Because you know how they're kind of built. So they found that. They've found rivets, like iron rivets that was used to hold it together. And apparently there was a museum it's about 4 hours away from where I am now. It's in like it's in Tennessee, just south of Nashville. And they actually had some of those like rivets at the museum. I wanted to go check. Yeah, I wanted to go look at it, but when I looked it up, it looked like the museum was possibly shut down because their website wouldn't pop up, and they didn't really have many like photos or anything on there. It just didn't seem like it was a live thing. So, I mean, if you're ever in Nashville and you might want to check it out, I can't remember what the name of the museum was called. I have it on the video, but I thought it was really interesting. So
Bill and I did a video where he walked through it with the guy who created it. It was not a fun video to watch.
Oh yeah.
Bill Nye was not very nice. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
He's like,
Even though
none
he's
of
been
this is
coming out
accurate. Blah.
Yeah, even though he's been coming out with a bunch of videos like, "Hey, let's not be assholes toward each other." Like,
Yeah,
like, "Let's be nice," and then he goes and does that.
yeah, yeah. Because the guy that created the whole Ark thing too, like the Ark exhibit or whatever, he's one of those early Earth believers too.
Mm,
So that obviously is very controversial as well.
yeah, like a 6,000-year-old Earth or something like that.
Yeah, and apparently on the exhibit, there's a lot of stuff that supports that idea. So there's like pictures of like dinosaurs and humans walking together, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
so sure.
that's why Bill and I was like, "This is you're teaching people all the wrong things."
Yeah, well, I mean,
Like,
there
listen to what
is
people believe.
because of carbon dating and stuff like that, I mean, there is proofs that stuff goes back, like, millions of years.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's like, okay, but when you read through Genesis and God starts creating the earth and like all everything in it, all the vegetation and stuff like that, in order, it makes sense how things were created because like you have to have the land first, right? He separated the waters and then he put vegetation on it. What else would the animals eat? If you had animals come first before vegetation, it wouldn't make sense.
Well, also oxygen.
Oxygen, yeah, that too. So there's a lot of things that make sense. And it says it goes by day. Like, and there was morning and there was evening. So that there's days. However, we don't know what a day is to God.
Right.
You know what
Well,
I mean? So
the whole idea of it getting into like the minutia of trying to use Genesis as a roadmap for scientific stuff is kind of strange, in my opinion. Like, I don't think that Genesis is a scientific textbook, you know?
no,
So, like,
but
if
it
the
depends
Earth
on how
was
you look at it. Depends on perspective, right?
right. Well, like, if the Earth was 100,000 years old or whatever, I'd be like, okay, like, you know, I actually lean towards like the old Earth more so than I do the 6,000-year-old Earth.
Right.
Um, but does that make me any less of a believer in any of this stuff? No. It's just
No,
like,
no.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't think that the Bible is like a textbook for scientific study, you know? I
No,
do
no,
think it's a
that's
good historical book. We'll say
yeah,
that.
it is. It is absolutely. But that's the thing is like science is it's not necessarily separate from God, but it's a little bit different. It's science is our own study of the natural world, right? When you read a book like the Bible, it's mostly based on faith. I mean, it talks about faith a lot.
Mhm.
So in science, you can't really like I don't know, that's not really like something that can be proven or disproven, right? Faith, like that's to a degree, yes, but not with hard fact.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, there's some separation there and you got to learn to discern that kind of stuff. Like it's challenging. There's a
Well,
video that I want to send you. I thought I sent it to you before, but this guy talks about Genesis and how it makes sense with all of the fossil record that we have. Um, like, because apparently, like a couple decades ago, the only proof like
oh,
fossils from animals.
you
What?
just broke up there a little bit. I don't know if it was my Wi-Fi or yours.
Might be mine. I have a little symbol up here saying it's dropping. Oh no. Oh. Anyway, like they had the fossil record of how like animals the claim was that animals came before vegetation on Earth. And the guy was like, well, it doesn't make sense because for one, they gotta have something to eat. And for two, vegetation doesn't fossilize like bones do or shells, right? So it's going to be very rare to find fossil of a plant, right? Because it decomposes too quickly. However, over the last like decade or so, there has been a fossil found that was vegetation that was dated back before any of the earliest fossils from animals. So it is proven that the vegetation came before, and it only makes sense if you use common sense. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the order of which everything happened would probably be accurate. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I guess so. More is what I'm saying. Like if you go like into the evolution idea, right? There's a lot of Christians that don't believe evolution is real, or at least parts of it. Like if it's real, okay. If it's not, okay. Like like you can state your basis that either way, yes, we were created. If God made it to where he started with one organism and then evolved it immediately into all these other animals in like a very fast, rapid evolution time frame, then like that's just how he would create it, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
just because it says, okay, God created one organism, and then from that one organism, then he created all the animals and the birds and everything like that. Does that make it any less true? Because if he still created it, he still created it. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
we did use evolution to make man, okay, so what? Now,
Yeah.
I'm more of the belief that like obviously like the changing and like the animals throughout history, like time frame adapting to their environment. That's true. Like we can
Hmm.
see that.
Yeah.
But I'm not opposed, like I'm not fully convinced that we came from one organism. I do think that the animals were created separately. We don't
Yeah.
have any evidence for any of that linking thing. Where's the link between a reptile and a mammal? I haven't found any evidence of that.
Right.
Where's the link between like those primitive apes, like cavemen type things, and modern day humans? Because it goes like this, like increasingly gets bigger, and then boom, all of a sudden there's like human. Oop. So like there's no missing link there, and science hasn't been able to find the missing link between any of
Right.
these things that state that we all came from one organism, essentially.
Yeah.
If they
Exactly.
did, oh well. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter because it doesn't clarify that stuff in the
Right.
Bible. And the Bible is not a scientific logbook of how God created everything.
Right. Exactly. If we, and that's the thing is we can't. There's no way that we could possibly fathom God's power. You know.
Right.
So it just goes to show you that we're just simple creatures. God is way bigger than we are, and that's why the Bible is also filled with things that we can't necessarily explain, filled with tons of metaphors that mean several different things as you read through them. It's just showing us that God's true divinity is something bigger than we could even imagine.
Right.
So you have to keep that into consideration. And some people are more logical than others, and I understand, but it's important to have faith, man. I mean,
Absolutely. All right. We got a little derailed there. We should keep going.
yeah, we should. Although I do want to say this real quick. I just found out it ties into the evolution thing. Apparently, alligators. I don't know if this is in the Amazon or what, but apparently, alligators are now starting to play dead to
Oh,
lure people in.
I
To
saw that video.
Yeah, dude. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And someone must have said, or someone said that this must have happened quite a few times if they've learned to play dead to
Yeah.
get a human to come up to them.
I was
Like,
looking at the comments on that, and people were saying in the comments that they've done that for a long time, and it's not just for humans, it's for other animals too. So I don't know. But still, either way, that's
I've never
terrifying.
heard of it before. And growing up in Florida, you learn all kinds
Yeah.
of things about
No,
alligators, right?
I've never seen an
So,
alligator do that ever. So
yeah,
I've seen
play dead in the water where their
thousands
hands
of
are like
alligators. Yeah.
sticking up out of the water like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's terrifying.
yeah,
If I did see an alligator out there though doing that, I still wouldn't go up and grab it. Are you kidding me?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I know a couple
Like,
rednecks who would for sure.
yeah, I know Josh would.
Yeah, he might. I don't know.
Dude, he's been gator hunting a long time.
Yeah, but I don't
He
know
has,
if
like,
he would
no
just go
fear when it
grab
comes to that
one.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
He
be,
does
like,
have fear
poking
with
it.
it. That's why he does it. It's the adrenaline rush, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
To me, though, I'm like, why?
I want to go gator hunting. It's on my to-do list.
It would be fun. but it's also kind of scary at the same
This
time.
man conquering beast.
Yeah, I guess that's true though. We shouldn't we should only fear the Lord, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, but he did put fear in us, for a reason. If we run across like a black bear or something in the woods,
yeah, yeah. Well, not so much a
could
black
help
bear
you
as much of
yeah, like
like a
grizzly.
grizzly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, black bear with her cubs maybe, but grizzly, dude, just just run.
Yeah, for real.
All right. Exodus 15, the Song of Moses. Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord, saying, I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host he cast into the sea, and his chosen officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow your adversaries. You send out your fury. It consumes them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up, the floods stood up in a heap. The deeps congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire shall have its fill of them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You have led your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. Oh, you have led in your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them by your strength to your holy abode. The peoples have heard, they tremble. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Philistia? Yeah. The people have heard, they tremble. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Now are the chiefs of Edom dismayed. Trembling seizes the leaders of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread fall upon them. Because of the greatness of your arm, they are still as a stone. Till your people, O Lord, pass by, till the people pass by whom you have purchased. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, the place, O Lord, which you have made for your abode, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. For when the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Bitter water made sweet. Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore, it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" And he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log, and he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. There the Lord made for them a statute and a rule, and there he tested them, saying, "If you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do that which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer." Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water.
Not God laughing right there. If you diligently listen to the voice of your Lord God and do that which is right in his eyes and give ear to his commandments and keep all of his statutes, I will put none of these diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians. Just knowing that everyone's going to fail.
Yeah, right. Yeah, honestly. Yeah, because these commandments coming up, it's pretty lengthy too, man. I was like, dang, it's still going? Like, I thought it was only 10. I feel like it's more than that.
Well, the 10 commandments are coming up. These are
Right.
like, that's like the law essentially, but this is like things that are still supposed to be followed. So like the 10 commandments is like
Right.
the Mosaic law.
Right,
There's
right.
like other things. But it is
Yeah.
kind of interesting too, because it said there the Lord made for them a statute and a rule, and there he tested them. Like he knew it was a test, It's like it's literally God saying, do this, and I'll do this for you. And people still like either following by it or falling short. And it is fascinating because after you read this, after reading the New Testament, this is all the stuff that we were held to that standard before the coming of Jesus, up until the time that Jesus died. And it's like this impossible thing to actually do.
Right.
So reading this through, knowing that it's an impossible task to keep, it's really interesting. And knowing that God's using it as a way to show not just that we are imperfect humans, but that literally that's pretty much it. Showing that we're imperfect humans, but that we also need God to help us out with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it weren't for God, we wouldn't be able to do this stuff.
Right.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's also God being like, I know what's going to happen, but you need to see it play out so you know too.
Yeah.
You need to understand that the heart of man is corrupt.
That it is. Through one man came sin, and through one man we were forgiven of that sin.
Yeah, that's right. Bread from heaven. They set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, "Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily." So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, "At evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he had heard your grumbling against the Lord. For what are we that you grumble against us?" And Moses said, "When the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling that you grumble against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness. And behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am your Lord, your God. In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp, and in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost, on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, it is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it, each one of you, as much as he can eat. You shall each take an omer, according to the number of persons that each of you has in his tent. And the people of Israel did so. They gathered some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over till the morning. But they didn't listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the sixth day he gathered twice as much. On the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, this is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside to be kept till the morning. So they laid it aside till the morning, as Moses had commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, eat it today, for today is the Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none. On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years, till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is the 10th part of an ephah.
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 Yeah, which I still don't know what what that is. But and something interesting that I want to point out is Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt. Excuse me, Egypt. So if they're supposed to keep this, who's still got it?
I actually Googled this when I read through it.
Did you?
Yeah. Apparently it's in the Ark of the Covenant.
It's in the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah. Not Noah's Ark, but like the Ark.
Right. Yeah.
So
Interesting. I didn't know that.
that's what Google said. I don't know.
That's
I
what
haven't
Google
read
said?
through that part yet. I mean, I think I have. I just didn't like register it.
See, yeah, when I was reading through, like, you're talking about like the creation of the Ark of the Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like when God is telling them you need to do this and build it with this and this and that.
Yeah, I've
Um,
definitely read through it, but it also said that like Aaron's staff, Moses and Aaron's staff were in there as well.
really? See,
Yeah.
I don't remember that when I
I don't
read
remember
through it.
that either. That's what Google said. So that maybe it's just speculation. Because I
Maybe.
literally, I was like, where is this jar? Has anyone
Yeah,
found the jar of manna? But no, no one
right.
found it yet.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to know. Or like cuz what I imagined when I read this is that like the families had a jar of manna, right? So,
For those listening, the camera just zoomed in on his face and got stuck there.
um, so I was kind of under the impression that like certain families had kept the manna. So why would it not be passed down to generations throughout the families? Right? But I mean, if it was literally just like one jar of it, I would understand and no one can find it.
Well, that's what
But
it
if it,
says right afterwards. And Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it and place it before the Lord to be kept through your generations.
oh yeah, take a jar.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I would love to taste that manna, though. Are you kidding me?
Right? That
Like
sounds
sweet
delicious.
wafers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also the fact that like it is funny because it said God was going to test them, and like the test here is literally just listen to God. That's all it is.
Yeah, literally. And they
Yeah,
can't even do that.
because it's like get out of your own ways. Because like logically, yes, you want to go collect food for Sunday, right? Like Sunday's around, like you still have to eat, right?
Right.
So go look for it on Sunday. But then God's like, no, 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 don't do that. I'm telling you not to do that.
Yeah. It's
And
a
then they
rest
did.
day. So you
Yep.
rest.
Mm-hmm. And then God goes, don't stare, like eat all your manna every day. Like don't save it till tomorrow. And then the people who saved it, because like logically thinking, I'm going to save my food and make it last. Boom, it goes bad.
Yep.
So it's like literally God being like, listen to me, not yourself.
Yep.
Even though you're
Yep.
being logical. Nope.
Right. And the fact that like the people who because God said collect only as much as you need for like each person. Basically, it was like an omer for each person in the household, right? So anyone who collected more than an omer of it, they had none left.
Yep.
So they weighed it and it was just gone.
Yep.
So think about that
Anyone
too.
who didn't get enough had more than enough.
Yep. So I think that's really cool too, because he's like, dude, I'm trying to tell you, just collect what you need. And the people who were greedy ended up getting nothing.
Yep.
So they probably starved that night.
Not to mention that right before this, they're still pissed at Moses.
Yeah. And he's like, your
after,
grumblings aren't even against me, dude. They're against God. Like, why are you even doing this?
yeah,
Like, God has
after God's
proven
already
himself.
split the freaking Red Sea and had
Yeah.
like a ball of fire and
Yeah.
like
Delivered you
clouds.
from the hand of the Egyptians.
Yeah. And they're still like,
Uh,
I have no food.
Quail came and covered their camp that night.
Yep.
You know, like, dude, come on. It's like to us, it's like, really? But I bet you if we were going through it too, it'd be like, man, this sucks, man. Moses, what are you gonna do?
100%. Yeah, I'd be like, I'm keeping my food for tomorrow, dude. I don't know about you.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm rationing out here.
You wake up, there's worms. You're like, oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, but it's literally God just being like, just listen to me, not yourself.
Yeah.
That's the test here.
Yep.
And we
Exactly.
are incapable of doing it.
It's something so simple.
Yep.
Follow directions. We learned that in elementary school.
Yeah.
We still can't do it.
Yep. I gotta pee real quick. Let me take a quick break.
All right.
Okay.
I could hear you. Ah.
I was hoping you could hear it. Made it a little extra loud.
On Facebook, I also just sent you a video of this guy explaining like some scientific stuff in regards to Genesis as well. So he explains it in a very thought out manner, and it's
Mm.
really cool.
Yeah. After we finish doing the readings, you can put it up on the screen here. We can do a reaction video together.
Yeah, that's fine. We could definitely do that.
Yeah.
All right. Doesn't really pertain to Exodus, though. Do we want to save that certain one? Maybe look up some videos of like the Red Sea
Yeah. If we
stuff.
want to do like just a reaction night one night, we could do that as well.
Yeah,
like
maybe we
save
should
the
just
video.
do that. That way it's like some separate content.
Yeah.
So that works for me. All right. Exodus 17. Water from the rock. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of Sin by stages. Excuse me. Got a little tickle in my throat.
I would say bless you, but that wasn't no sneeze.
No. Oh, I need some water.
I forgot you're a Stanley Cup man now.
It's just useful because it's such a big cup. It's
Yeah.
Bailey's cup technically, but I don't care. It's such a big cup though. I love it.
Yeah,
Holds so
Stanley was
much
such like
water.
a manly cup for so long, and then they just like started dying out because of like Yeti and all those, and then
Yeah, and then you get these colors.
then
They're
they
all like
rebranded for white
pastels.
girls. And all the white girls are like Stanley cups.
Yeah. I need to stay hydrated.
I told my sister, I'm like, you strike me as a Stanley Cup girl, and she got so offended.
It's like saying that you're an UGG girl or something. The freaking
Yeah.
UGG boots.
She's like, that's like saying I'm a stereotypical like Starbucks white girl. I'm like, you are a stereotypical
You are.
Starbucks white girl.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. It's okay. You can fall into a stereotype.
Yeah. She's like, well, then you'd be a Starbucks like white boy. And I'm like, I am a Starbucks white boy. I go to Starbucks all the time. I love Starbucks.
Yeah. I'm definitely not. I'll get a chai tea latte from Starbucks if Bailey goes, but that's
Yeah.
rare. I do
Dude.
not like coffee.
Large venti cold brew, just black. Oh, it's motor oil, dude. It's great. Yeah.
Motor oil.
It really, it's black. It's like tar. It's freaking
Wow.
amazing. Jet fuel.
Wow.
Dude.
Jet fuel.
Yeah. No
Wow.
calories.
Oh, there you go.
Make you jittery.
Yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah. It's great. I do.
I'm already jittery enough as
I wake up in the morning, I'm like, ugh.
Let me go get that Starbucks.
I am one of those morning people where it's like, don't talk to me before I
Yeah.
have coffee.
I know. I do relatively good in the mornings as far as attitude goes. But I mean, some mornings are more rough than others, don't get me wrong. But I'm generally a pretty happy person in the morning.
Yeah.
Do I want to wake up? No, not at all. But
I wish I could be happy in the morning. I've just never been that way. I pray about it sometimes, but probably not enough.
yeah. Well, maybe the first thing you got to do when you wake up in the morning is pray to God. Maybe it'll help.
I do try and do that, but most of the time when I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, ugh. Can't help it.
Feels like you woke up from an
freaking
eternal
alarm.
slumber or something.
Dude, I'll go and hit that snooze button and be like, yeah, what do you think about that alarm clock? Tell me to wake up.
Dude, this morning my alarm was going off. I did not even hear it. It was going off for so long, it was just quiet. It was just the alarm on my screen. God.
Oh, it just zoomed in on him again.
Ugh.
We got to figure out ways to turn that off. It is kind of annoying.
Yeah. It's fine for now. I'm sure
we
there's
gotta-
a
we have to
setting
do
for
it at the same time. Just droop,
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep. It couldn't have been more perfect on my screen.
For real.
All right.
Yeah. Water.
Anyway, water from the rock. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of sin by stages. It's ironic it's called the wilderness of sin, right?
It's
Because
just because they keep messing up.
they did not listen to God at all. According to the commandment of the Lord. Oh, let me moved on from the wilderness of sin by stages, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why do you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" You'd think that they wouldn't have learned the first like 10 times.
Yeah, for real.
So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Pass on before the people." Let me go. Pass on before the people, taking with you, taking with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the quarreling of the people of Israel, and because they tested the Lord by saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?"
How
He
could they
obviously is,
freaking
dude.
think that?
That's what I'm saying. All of these crazy things have just been happening to you. All of your grumbling has been, satisfied, and they still continue to do this. I mean, I don't know, man. It just blows my mind. Like, you'd think at this point that they would have such devout faith that they would grumble no longer.
So,
But
well, at this point, have they already spent 40 years? This is 40 years later.
yeah, they
Okay.
were like in the wilderness for like 40 years.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it just was saying like they were in the wilderness for 40 years and then like went back to where they were, or like they were in the wilderness for 40 years and then now we're starting from at the end of the 40 years. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics. I know that it did say that they were in the wilderness for 40 years. I think that after that 40-year mark is when they started exiting the wilderness into the right, because that's what it didn't
The
say that at
wilderness
the
of
beginning of it.
sin. Yeah.
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 So this is 40 years later. So I mean, I can kind of get it 40 years later, but even at that, they're still eating manna every day, you know?
That's what I'm saying. For 40 years, everything was provided to you. Like, all you had to do was go and collect it.
Yeah. Okay. So the minute that things stop being provided immediately, they're like, Moses, we're going to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. These people are about to stone me to death. I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. I mean, and you got to think too, like, well, we don't know how long these people were living. 40 years is a long time. So there's probably a lot of new generations coming in, right?
Mhm.
So it could be those people too who haven't seen, like, they were just born into it and they were like expecting this kind of stuff. So
That's
as
very true.
soon as a little bit of tribulation starts, they're like, oh, but
That's very true.
either
This is like
way,
a perfect representation because obviously, like Israel represents God's people, right?
right.
And then this whole Mosaic story really is a great representation for like the world, people, how they treat God.
Mm-hmm.
So the minute that we stop getting what we want,
Yep.
like without being fed, we're ready to like go overthrow something and go do something else.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as things start to get hard, you're like, God, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah. Oh, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. Israel defeats Amalek. Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, Choose for us. So Moses said to Joshua, Choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. When Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands on one side, and one on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, Write this as a memorial in a book and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it, The Lord is my banner, saying, A hand upon the throne of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So that's just him saying that any like people coming from Amalek and his tribe essentially, that he's just gonna have war with them.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's people coming against the kingdom of God, the people of God.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so because they attacked God's people, God's like, you're now my enemy.
Mm,
Right. This is before the whole forgiveness aspect has come in.
right.
And really, this is a great representation for those who are believers,
Yeah, that's true. That God will stand against you if you come up and try to kill his people.
Mhm. For if the Lord is with me, then who can be against me?
Mm.
I don't really have anything I want to touch on there. Do you?
Nah, not really.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's interesting that you say that though, because that verse right there, if the Lord is with me, then who can be against me? It's actually part of a prayer that I learned from my coworker. It's
Oh,
actually
really?
pretty cool. Yeah, so it's not all verses. It's stuff that he created, but he kind of added little verses in there. So he says, "I am the head and not the tail." Wait, yeah, I am the head and not the tail, above, not beneath. Any weapon formed against me will not prosper. If the Lord is with me, then who can stand against me?
Yeah, that's scripture.
I don't think the whole thing is.
Starting from the part of right. What was it you just said? Reset.
I'm the head and not the tail, above, not beneath. Any weapon formed against me will not prosper.
Yeah, I'm
So
pretty
I
sure.
believe he did say that that was scripture, and then
Yeah,
that second part, if the Lord is with me, then who then can stand against me,
yeah, and then
is
that
also scripture.
no hand shall. I don't know why it's slipping my mind. No, I'm dumb. The first
It's
part
okay,
that you
just take a
said
second.
right after the above and below part is
Mhm.
that starting from there is scripture.
Yeah,
But I'm pretty sure the above and below is also in there.
it might be.
It's pretty, yeah.
Maybe he just didn't realize it, and he did. But yeah, and then after that, um, says, if the Lord is with me, who then can stand against me? As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord our God.
That's also scripture.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I also added in there after that, as for my household, we will serve the Lord our God and accept Jesus into our hearts that he may give us eternal life.
Right.
Amen.
That's also scripture.
I
Well, I'm going to look up that verse just so we can say it.
just like that you said that because I've actually been wanting to tell you that little prayer. I've been saying it. I said it a lot today so that I can memorize it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
Something I got to get in the habit of saying.
Mm-hmm. Romans 8:31.
Which is what?
If God is for us, who can be against us?
Mm.
Okay.
All right. 18.
Yep. All right. Jethro's advice. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Now Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, had taken Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her home, along with her 2 sons. The name of one was Gershom, for he said, I have been a sojourner in a foreign land. And the name of the other, Eliezer, for he said, the God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. And when he sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons with her. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and bowed down and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare and went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had come upon them in the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done to Israel, and that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hands of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because in this affair they dealt arrogantly with this people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses, Moses' father-in-law, before God. The next day Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood around Moses from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone, and all the people stand around you from morning till evening? And Moses said to his father-in-law, Because the people have come to me to inquire of God, when they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make them know the statutes of God and his laws. Moses' father-in-law said to him, What you are doing is not good. You and the people with you certainly will wear yourselves out, for the thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. Now obey my voice. I will give you advice, and God be with you. You shall represent the people before God and bring their cases to God, and you shall warn them about the statutes and the law, and make them known the way in which they must walk and what they must do. Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens, and let them judge the people at all times. Every great matter they shall bring to you, but any small matter they shall decide themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, God will direct you. You will be able to endure, and all this people will go to the place in peace. So Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he had said. Moses chose able men out of all of Israel and made them heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And they judged the people at all times. Any hard case they brought to Moses, but any small matter they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went away to his own country.
Smart man right there.
Yeah, no kidding. Creating a hierarchy for sure.
Yeah.
Also, it shows, I think, a good representation of church and how that kind of goes too.
Hmm.
Like the Catholic Church actually has a system like that, starting from like the Pope down.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
Um,
sense. I mean, it makes things a lot more manageable.
yeah. And then a lot of other churches too, like also kind of has a very similar thing with like small group leaders, and then you have like the leaders of the church, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's good to establish stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Exodus 19. Israel at Mount Sinai. On the third new moon after the people of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. They set out from Rephidim and came into the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. They, are you laughing? Oh, I was just
No,
hearing noises. I was like, why are you laughing?
it's in your head.
Yeah.
Demons, they're coming for
Oh no.
you.
God is with me. Uh, there Israel encamped before the mountain while Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him out of the mountain, saying, thus you shall say to the house of Jacob and tell the people of Israel, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words that the Lord had commanded him. All the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. And Moses reported the words of the people to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, I am coming to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may also believe you forever. When Moses told the words of the people to the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready for the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. And you shall set limits for the people all around, saying, take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be stoned or shot. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their garments. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day, do not go near a woman. On the morning of the third day, there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast, so that all the people in the camp trembled. Then Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they took their stand at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord had descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. And as the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, And the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go down and warn the people, lest they break through to the Lord, to look, and many of them perish. Also, let the priests who come near to the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them." And Moses said to the Lord, "The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you yourself warned us, saying, 'Set limits around the mountain and consecrate it.'" And the Lord said to him, "Go down and come up, bringing Aaron with you, but do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them.
Be pretty freaky, yeah.
Yeah,
Just trying to like envision that scene happening in my head.
right.
The top of a mountain literally being lit on fire, lightning clouds and thunder all around. And when
Yeah,
Moses
a
called up,
trumpet blast.
yeah, they hear a trumpet blasting. I mean, they're essentially in like the midst of like a great destruction. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Standing around like a massive storm, seeing a mountain get set on fire,
Right.
hearing God talk, like that would be terrifying.
Yeah. Which isn't that mountain like still black to this day? Like the top of it is like black, I think.
It's debatable on which mountain is Mount Sinai, but the
Mm.
one that Ron Wyatt found is black. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But there's some other thoughts about where it might be as well.
It says Mount Sinai in Arabia. How many mountains are in Arabia?
Well, there's also like the lines have changed as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So they don't really know where Arabia was during this time.
That makes sense.
So it's up for debate on multiple
Yeah,
places.
the borders have changed.
Hmm.
Couldn't be that far from the Red Sea, though, right?
I mean, they wandered for 40 years.
Well, it said they encamped in the wilderness for 40 years. Does that mean they wandered? Well, and this was after, too, right? This was after they left the wilderness.
Yeah. So they've been traveling.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, it's
Yeah.
up for debate.
Yeah. Here we go on the 10 Commandments.
Oh yeah. Exodus 20. The 10 Commandments. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water underneath. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant, or your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in the 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land, your Lord, that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Now, when all the people saw that the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled, and they stood far off and said to Moses, "You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, lest we die." Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, that you may not sin." The people stood far off while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. Laws about altars. And the Lord said to Moses, "Thus you shall say to the people of Israel, you have seen for yourselves that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make gods of silver to be with me, nor shall you make yourselves gods of gold. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. If you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stones, for if you wield your tool on it, you profane it. And you shall not go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness be not exposed on it."
It's really interesting with the altar stuff. Like, you shall not build it of hewn stones. So you just got to find like natural stones and like build a little altar. I mean, they did that quite a bit when we read through Genesis. There's
Yeah.
a couple of guys who did that. And like anointed it with oil and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also interesting saying like, you shall not make gods of silver to be with me, nor shall you make for yourself gods of gold. So like, what if you have like a silver Jesus?
I think the context here is that in those days, a lot of altars that were made to other gods were made of like silver and gold. And he's saying, don't even build it out of a hewn stone.
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
But again,
Still interesting though. It's
yeah,
like,
I think that a lot of this is just to kind of prove that humans will do what they're going to do,
yeah, that's true.
because something's coming up here that shows humans violating it.
Well, yeah, when I read through this, I thought too, like, well, what about our necklaces? Like my necklace in particular has like a gold Jesus on it. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily part of an altar or anything, and it's not that I worship the necklace itself. It's just a reminder to myself that I need to keep Jesus in my heart. You know what I mean? So like, how does that kind of correlate to this?
He's not saying that gold or silver is bad in this situation.
Right.
Right. He's saying don't even build an altar of hewn stones to me. Like, if you wield your tool on it, you'll profane it. He's saying use what I've put on the earth to go build your altar. Right.
Right.
So he's not saying that silver or gold is bad or that hewn stones are bad, but he's saying as a guide to build altars, you don't need to go do all this stuff. You don't need to go build golden statues or whatever. Just use what you naturally find, just like he's been naturally providing all the food to him, food to them, and everything like that.
Right. Yeah, and it says here, if you make me an altar of stone. So it's not even saying like you need to make me one. He's just saying if you decide to make one.
Hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. I didn't catch that before either.
Yeah,
Something else I wanted to cover, I think it was toward the top here.
yeah. It
I
does
think
say
that
to an altar of earth you shall make for me. Verse 24. Not of man.
I like that. Something else I want to cover at the top, which is like kind of a little thing to like get to know God better. It's really interesting that he says, "For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." So God can be like jealous.
Yes.
Like if you're like, if you're like worshiping other gods or other like idols, he gets really jealous. So, you know, like if you're doing that stuff and his wrath comes upon you, it's kind of on you, man. Like you should know. Like he's a jealous one.
Hmm.
Got to be careful.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting
He wants
because
us for
it's
himself.
yeah, because like it's understandable, but like when I first read through this, I was like, wow, like you think of jealousy as like a human like sin kind of thing, right? But because I think Jesus even talks about like don't be jealous of your neighbor, like if
Right.
they have more than you, right? So I mean, I understand that's kind of a different context a bit, but still, like when you think of jealousy, you don't really think about it. I didn't think about it pertaining to God until I read this. I was like, wow, like
Well, yeah.
I
Think of
think
it
it's really cool.
in the situation of like, you know, your son, Grayson. You're his father, right?
Hmm.
And Grayson starts going and hanging out with his friend's dad all the time. And he's learning a lot from his friend's dad, and he starts paying you less and less attention. But his friend's dad is becoming really close with him.
Mm,
And his friend's dad isn't really teaching him good things either. Would you be jealous?
yeah,
So it's the same with God.
yeah. It definitely makes sense. I definitely understand it. I just thought it was so interesting when I read that.
Hmm.
I was just like, wow.
I mean, God wants us, man. It's very clear in the Bible. It's all
Oh
throughout.
yeah. Yeah, he loves us very much.
Hmm.
Oh, laws about slaves. This one's got me thrown for a whirl, bro. When I read this, I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Good thing you're reading it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's so interesting. All right. Exodus 21. Laws about slaves. Now these are the rules that you shall set before them. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him to God, and he shall bring him to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall be his slave forever. That part has got me like, what?
That's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Probably pull out the study Bible on this one.
yeah. And like, what's an awl? It's kind of
Uh,
like a gauge or something.
I
Like,
think
I
it's
don't
like
know.
I think it's like a nail, like a big nail.
Ooh,
I think. I don't know. We'll come back and revisit it in a minute.
yeah. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do, for she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself. Oh, if she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as with a daughter. If he takes another wife to be himself, He shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. And if he does not do these three things for her, she shall go out for nothing, without payment of money. Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. But if he did not lie in wait for him, but God let him fall into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place to which he may flee. But if a man willfully attacks another to kill him by cunning, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. Whoever strikes his father or his mother shall be put to death. Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him, shall be put to death. Whoever curses his father or his mother shall be put to death. When men quarrel and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and the man does not die, but takes to his bed, then if the man rises again and walks outdoors with his staff, he who struck him shall be clear. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time, and shall have him thoroughly healed. When a man strikes his slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. But if the slave survives a day or two, he is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money. When men strive together and hit a pregnant woman, so that her children come out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. When a man strikes the eye of his slave, male or female, and destroys it, he shall let the slave go free because of his eye. If he knocks out the tooth of his slave, male or female, he shall let the slave go free because of his tooth. When an ox gores a man or a woman to death, the ox shall be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall not be liable. But if the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, and its owner has been warned but has not kept in it, and it kills a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also be put to death. If a ransom is imposed on him, then he shall give for the redemption of his life whatever is imposed on him. If it gores a man's son or daughter, he shall be dealt with according to the same rule. If the ox gores a slave, male or female, the owner shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. Laws about restitution. When a man opens a pit, or when a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit shall make restoration. He shall give money to its owner, and the dead beast shall be his. When one man's ox butts another so that it dies, then they shall sell the live ox and share its price. And the dead beast also they shall share. Or if it is known that the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, and its owner has not kept it in, he shall repay ox for ox, and the dead beast shall be his.
I'm glad we don't live under this Mosaic law, man.
Dude, yeah, this was just so like convoluted. There's something I want to cover up here. Oh, it was the all thing.
Yeah, I did look it up, by the way.
Oh,
It
you
is
did?
big nail. You know that thing that, oh, here we go. Zoomed in on my face. Yeah, that tool. It's like a big long needle, but it's got a ball at the end so you can hammer it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So just if the child or if the man just wants if he loves his master and his wife and his children and says, "I will not go out free," then his master shall bore his ear through with an awl. So basically pierce his ear. Is that kind of what it's saying?
I don't know.
Because like an I don't know if it would it be like a smaller awl? Like it wouldn't be like that because that one that you're talking about is pretty big, right? It would like
I
destroy his ear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like it wouldn't destroy his ear, but yeah, it would be like a gauge or something for sure.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I guess it's
So
like
that
a
way, like,
marker that they are a lifetime slave.
right? But it's also interesting that, like, he says,
But it does say the door or the door post. I guess, yeah, I guess like on the doorpost, like they're gonna put his ear right there and just open it up.
I guess,
I don't know. Something that I have heard about this though is that when the Mosaic Law was given, a lot of it was done in regards to the times. So this is an argument that a lot of people use for modern day times, whereas like they don't want to follow the Bible as much because times have changed so much. They use this
hmm,
as like an example. I think you're getting in a hairy line there, you know. But I mean, all this stuff is very much in coordination with what's going on at the time.
right,
Slaves exist, you know.
right,
Um, people had their own animals at this time.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that's what I was gonna say too. Is like a lot of people say like, "Oh, God was okay with slavery," and it's like, no, no, not necessarily. He's just trying to give them guidelines to treat the slaves fairly,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I
So,
mean, at this time,
among other
God hadn't
people,
fully revealed himself yet either. I mean, he's revealing himself to Israel, right? But he hasn't forgiven them yet. He's telling them to live by a very, very strict guideline,
yeah,
and really only to like prove a point up to the coming of Jesus, which is going to prove the ultimate point, you know?
right. Yeah, and with all these because like some of these laws that he's giving them for these slaves are pretty convoluted, like complicated,
Yeah.
right? So then you got to think to yourself, well, it's probably better that I just don't have a slave, right?
Yeah.
That would kind of make sense. So God's trying to push them away from that because these laws are so complex to follow. So you could say that God's actually trying to push people away from slavery at this point.
Potentially. I don't know. Let me see what,
Just a thought that I had.
yeah.
See what the study Bible says.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of fascinating too that God just drove them out of slavery and there's slavery going on in the,
Yeah, they're buying Hebrews. Like
yeah, like they came out of slavery themselves and they're still buying slaves. Just shows how wicked they are.
right. Yeah, it's because I'm under the impression that is he still not speaking to the same people that he drove out of slavery?
Yeah, he is.
That's what I thought.
Same group. What verse was that? 6?
With the all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 21:6. Here's what the study Bible says on it. Debt was the most common reason that people became slaves. To employ a destitute person as a slave could be seen as a benevolent act, as it guaranteed him food and shelter and some income. The security provided by a good employer could leave some slaves to choose to remain in that status permanently. Fascinating.
Hmm. I mean, that makes sense. Like if you don't, if you have been trying to create the means to take care of yourself, but you can't, and your debts consume you, then you have no other choice, basically.
Right.
In our society, it's not like that at all. We just file for bankruptcy.
Right. Yeah.
So there's still a punishment for it, essentially. But
Right. It ruined your credit. Yeah.
so it's interesting that people like willingly would go into slavery just to have a roof over their head
Right.
and to be fed.
Yeah. And then that it would even be seen as a benevolent act in the first place too, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. What does benevolent mean?
Like a good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
To go into slavery, it's because essentially that's servitude,
Right.
which is what we're taught. We're taught to serve others.
Right.
So
Well,
it kind of
God
makes
uses slavery as servitude pretty like interchangeably throughout the Bible.
You're saying the word slavery and servitude he uses interchangeably?
I'm like the concept of it, like the concept of
Okay.
slavery is kind of used in that sense of servitude.
Yeah, and I think too, like a lot when we hear slave or slavery, we're used to thinking of what happened, you know, several decades ago to people in the United States,
Right.
right?
Which
Colored
was
people,
terrible.
which was terrible, absolutely. The way they treated them, so they were actually going completely against these laws for the slaves by hurting them and doing other heinous things to them. Um, but I think that's why people get so pent up over it when they read it or hear about it in, Exodus here, is because you're thinking, oh, God's okay with slavery. It's like, okay, it's not the same slavery that we think of automatically.
Right. Well, so if you let's put this into a context. So if you're a kid, you're 16 years old, and you're caught stealing from a store, and the store owner catches you stealing, and he's stealing something that is pretty expensive. This kid's stealing like $1,000 item or $2,000 item, something to be considered grand theft, right?
Right.
So store owner comes up. He knows that the kid knows that if he goes to jail for stealing this thing, like if he steals this thing and the cops catch him, he's going to go to jail for 2 years or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And then the store owner comes up to him and says, "Hey, I'm going to give you two choices here. I'm either going to let you work for me for 2 years, and you're going to work under me. And if you work for me, I'll give you food over your head. I'll give you a pay, and you're going to work essentially for me for 2 years, or and call the cops, and then you can go get in the slammer for 2 years. Go to jail,
Right.
and then after you get out of jail, you're on your own. But if you work for me after 2 years, I'll provide everything for you, but you're going to work for me, and then I'll let you go after those 2 years." That essentially is kind of in this context that we're reading here, slavery, right?
Yeah. I mean, kind of. Yeah. He still has a choice. But I mean, it also said that in the Bible study or the study Bible that like people who didn't have any money chose to do that. So he has a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Either that or be put to death.
right. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of like slavery to a degree, but it's like willingly being a slave.
Right. So the context, I think, of slavery in this day is a vastly different idea of slavery than we hold as most Americans do as slavery.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Because I
Because you
mean,
automatically assume that they're treated like crap.
right. I mean, they even said when they were hungry and they were cursing at Moses, they're like, well, at least in Egypt, when we were slaves there, we had food every day.
Yeah.
So they were still
Yeah.
being fed. They still had a place to live. They had work. And it apparently wasn't terrible enough for them to not just abolish slavery right then and there, because now they're taking on slaves as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And God is saying too, after the 6th year, on the 7th year, let them free.
Yeah, that is true
Not
too.
saying keep them in lifelong slavery unless they want to.
Right. Right. Yeah, which is interesting, like with the whole wife and child thing too, because it says that if the master gives the slave a wife and he has children, that the wife and the children are still the master's. So like would they still let those slaves go after 7 years or 6 years?
The wife and the kids
Yeah,
that of the married person or the
right.
person who is the slave. Yeah, it says that in there.
When you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the seventh he shall go out free for nothing. But that's not necessarily what he's saying here. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. So, no, he's saying that it's not really saying like, but if
Oh,
the wife and the
oh,
children,
if it's under the context of slavery and the slave master gives him a wife, then he keeps the wife.
and the children.
Right. It does say though that if he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. Interesting.
Right.
That would be also, I guess, a reason to get them to stay,
Right.
which seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Hmm. This is another one that threw me for a whirl here too is verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave. That's that's just wild to me. You're gonna sell your own children?
Yeah.
So wild times back in the Old Testament.
Yeah, no kidding. But also keep in mind, I think I might have said this earlier, but at this point, God is not coming to change the world.
Right.
He's coming to give laws,
Yeah.
right? And inherently, what that law is supposed to be doing is to show that we can't follow it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he's not coming to change the world at this point. This is not him doing it. What he is doing is he's establishing that he exists, you know,
Yeah.
because now he's spreading the name. He's showing these mighty acts. He's coming down. He's actually saying to the world at this point and revealing that this is a God that is real, that's more powerful than all the lowercase gods. So he's doing that, and then he's also giving his people an impossible standard to live by.
Yeah.
Fascinating,
It is. It just shows that he's setting up redemption.
right? Yeah, and a lot of people argue this against a benevolent God or like an all good God because how could an all good God do this? But really, it's he's showing us how bad we really are. Yeah,
It's true.
as humans.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
It is fascinating stuff. This is some of the harder stuff to wrap your head around too. The Old Testament
Ye
is hard to read and hard to understand a lot of these times.
Yeah, it is. At least he's giving, like, laws to get them to treat their slaves like decent human beings, like,
Mhm.
treat them right.
Yeah,
Even if I don't understand the whole, wife and children staying with the master thing.
right. And keep in mind too, this is the law for the kingdom of Israel.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So he gives the 10 commandments, but then for the kingdom of Israel, he's giving this. Right. So the commandments are what I think everyone is supposed to be held by what you're judged on in like heaven and whatnot. And then this is for the Israelites because they're establishing their kingdoms.
Yeah. Oh, I do think I'm going to call it here, though.
Yeah, no, I know. Me too. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right. So,
All right.
how are we supposed to end these videos?
Pretty sure we're supposed to say like and subscribe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. But like I don't want to do something like cliche, you know, where like it's like, oh, smash that like button. Like, we can't be doing that.
Yeah, no, but when you say it, you got to actually say it, like smash that like button. You know, you can't.
It just sounds cheesy though, because like people always say it and they're always saying, I'll smash that like button.
Yeah, but it's not. You're saying it wrong though. It's smash that like button. It's
I am saying it just like you're saying it, Bryce. Smash that like button.
no. You got to use your chest more. You gotta say smash
that like button.
No, that's no.
Because I sound exactly like you.
No, you
It's
don't.
like, thank you guys for liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel. If you were interested, please tune back in next week. We are dropping new videos on Mondays and Thursdays. And God bless y'all.
Yeah. Also, don't forget to smash that like button.
Do any of that. Gosh, dang it, man.
God bless. God bless y'all.